They built empires that shaped America, fortunes forged in steel, oil, and ink. Their names once ruled skylines, newspapers, and governments. The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, families who defined power itself. But behind every glittering mansion and golden legacy, there was a slow unraveling. Greed, pride, tragedy, and time. Generations spent faster than they earned. Empires turned into echoes. The wealth that once seemed eternal faded into myth. This is the untold story of America's fallen dynasties, how fortunes worth billions vanished, and how privilege became prison. From railroads to royalty, from power to ruin, these are the 10 old money families who lost it all. And their downfall tells us more about wealth than their rise ever did. In the number 10 position, we have the Vanderbilts, a family that once ruled America's wealth like royalty, yet ended up losing almost everything. They built an empire of steel, steam, and ambition, but behind the marble walls of their mansions lay the seeds of their own collapse. Cornelius, Commodore Vanderbilt, started with nothing, a poor ferry operator who turned his grit into gold. By the late 1800s, his descendants commanded railroads, yachts, and palaces that symbolized untouchable power. Their name was luxury itself. But then came the parties, the pride, and the price of excess. Generations spent faster than they built. Trusts crumbled. The once mighty family that funded New York's skyline became a cautionary tale of how fortunes fade when discipline dies. And as the last Vanderbilt mansion fell silent, another dynasty's story was waiting, one that turned New York's land into gold. In the number 9 position, we have the Astors, the family who once owned more of Manhattan than the city itself. Their empire rose from fur trading and blossomed into a real estate kingdom so vast it defined what old money meant in America. But even the richest landlords can't outrun time. John Jacob Astor, America's first multimillionaire, built his fortune on vision and nerve. His heirs built grand hotels, hosted royalty, and lived lives of glittering privilege. Yet behind the velvet curtains, ambition turned to arrogance. Properties sold, inheritances divided, reputations fractured. By the mid-20th century, the Astors' dominance was gone, their name surviving only on plaques and street corners. The dynasty that once owned Fifth Avenue became a ghost of its own legend. But another family was watching, ready to rise from Wall Street's shadows and gamble everything on power. In the number 8 position, we have the Goulds, the dynasty built on ambition, manipulation, and sheer nerve. Jay Gould was the man everyone feared on Wall Street, a mastermind who turned chaos into cash and made millions from the panic of others. But power built on fear rarely lasts forever. He controlled railroads, gold markets, and politicians with the flick of a pen. Yet his name became a curse, whispered in anger, not admiration. After his death, his children inherited vast wealth, but none of his ruthless brilliance. They spent lavishly, feuded bitterly, and watched their empire fracture. The Gould fortune evaporated as fast as it was made, scattered by greed and indifference. Today, their legacy lives only in history books, a reminder that cunning without conscience destroys itself, and soon, America's next great dynasty would learn that lesson the hardest way possible. In the number 7 position, we have the Whitneys, a family born from Wall Street brilliance and fueled by high society glamour. They were America's golden aristocrats, their names stitched into the fabric of power, art, and horse racing. But beneath the polish of wealth, cracks began to form. William C. Whitney built the foundation, a financier with political reach and industrial strength. His heirs turned that fortune into a lifestyle of polo, parties, and palaces. They married into other dynasties, hosted presidents, and shaped the Gilded Age elite. But with each generation, the discipline faded, fortunes turned into debts, estates into memories. Lavish living and scandal did what time could not. They drained the family's strength. The Whitneys remained symbols of prestige, but not prosperity. And as their legacy dimmed, another industrial giant was rising, one whose empire was built on steel and silence. In the number 6 position, we have the Mellons, once the quiet rulers of American finance and industry. Their fortune was born from oil, steel, and aluminum, the unseen machinery of a nation in motion. But even the strongest empires fade when power spreads too thin. Andrew Mellon was more than a banker. He was a kingmaker. He funded revolutions in business, served as U.S. Treasury Secretary, and shaped modern capitalism itself. His descendants inherited not just wealth, but a burden, a legacy too vast to control. Over time, taxes, philanthropy, and family divisions dismantled what once seemed eternal. Today, the Mellon name still echoes through universities and museums, but the empire itself is gone, its influence scattered across foundations and memories. And just as the Mellons fell from quiet power, another dynasty's empire of gunpowder and chemistry began to unravel in silence. In the number 5 position, we have the DuPonts, the family that armed America, powered its industries, and once controlled one of the largest fortunes in history. Their empire began with a spark, literal gunpowder that fueled wars and built wealth beyond imagination. But what burns brightly can also burn out. Eleuthère Irénée Dupont founded the dynasty in 1802, turning a small powder mill into a global force. For over a century, the family ruled chemistry, innovation, and corporate America itself. Yet when the company merged and modernized, control slipped from family hands. Inheritance battles, divorces, and distance scattered what remained. Today, hundreds of descendants live comfortably, but the throne of industrial royalty is gone. The DuPont name still carries prestige, but not power. And as their laboratories went silent, another dynasty's oil-soaked empire began to fade from the American dream. In the number 4 position, we have the Rockefellers, a name once synonymous with limitless power. John D. Rockefeller built an oil empire so vast it reshaped the global economy and made him the richest man in history. But even the brightest flame of wealth can dim with time. Standard Oil ruled the industrial world, and the Rockefellers ruled Standard Oil. Their influence touched every corner of America: banks, universities, politics, even charity. Yet, as the company was broken apart and heirs multiplied, control slipped away. Fortune turned into fragments, unity into legacy. Today, hundreds of Rockefellers remain, still wealthy, still respected, but the age of their dominance is gone. The empire that once fueled nations now survives as a shadow of its former self. And just beyond that shadow, another steel-born dynasty was preparing to give everything away and vanish by choice. In the number 3 position, we have the Carnegies, a family that rose from poverty to unimaginable power, only to let their fortune slip away by design. Andrew Carnegie built an empire of steel, forging the bones of modern America. But in his pursuit of greatness, he discovered a higher calling: to give it all away. His mills roared with progress, his fortune rivaled kings, yet his conscience grew heavier with every dollar earned. By the end of his life, Carnegie had donated nearly all his wealth to libraries, universities, and the arts. His descendants inherited ideals, not income. The Carnegie name still shines on stone buildings and scholarship plaques, but the fortune that built them is long gone. A dynasty defined by generosity, not gold. And as the Carnegies gave away their crown, another family of media titans prepared to gamble theirs. In the number 2 position, we have the Hearsts, the family that turned headlines into power and power into legend. William Randolph Hearst built a media empire that shaped presidents, wars, and public opinion itself. But behind the Incan glory lay excess, obsession, and a slow unraveling. Hearst's newspapers ruled America. His castle at San Simeon dazzled the world, yet his ambition outgrew his fortune. Debt mounted, control slipped, and his empire began to crack. Later generations inherited fragments of a legacy, still influential but no longer commanding. The Hearst Corporation survives, yes, but the family's once mighty dominance has faded into nostalgia. Their story became the cautionary mirror of American fame: powerful one moment, powerless the next. And as the printing presses fell silent, one final dynasty, America's royal family, prepared to trade power for tragedy and myth. In the number 1 position, we have the Kennedys, the family that captured America's heart and broke it time and again. They were wealth, charisma, and destiny woven together, a dynasty born of ambition and shadow. From bootlegging fortunes to the White House itself, the Kennedys seemed untouchable. But destiny has a cruel balance. Joseph Kennedy Sr. built the fortune. His sons carried the dream, John, Robert, and Ted, men who turned privilege into purpose. Yet power drew tragedy. Assassinations, scandals, and relentless public pressure tore through generations. The glamour dimmed, the money thinned, and the myth outlived the fortune. Today, the Kennedy name remains iconic, but its empire is history, remembered more for sacrifice than success. A dynasty that gained the world, yet lost everything that mattered. And in their fall, the story of old money America finally came full circle.